already, the doors don't even open until 8, but already we've seen a lot of folks come through.
And those people are members of the staff, both of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association and of Samaritan's Purse Operation Christmas Child, who got a few hours of privacy this morning to say goodbye to a man that they so admired. And then starting in just about 30 minutes at 8 o'clock, public will be welcome to come to the Billy Graham Library, where the Reverend is lying in repose in his home place, the house just behind me, from 8 o'clock this morning until 10 o'clock this evening. That is happening both today and tomorrow. But let's take a look at what's happening the rest of the week. I'm WFMY News 2's Maddie Gardner, live in front of the Billy Graham Library in Charlotte, where people are coming from near and far to pay their respects to Reverend Billy Graham. 5,624 people were here yesterday, just to be exact. Reverend Graham died at his home in Asheville at the age of 99 last week, and it's amazing what he was able to accomplish in those 99 years. More than 214 million people in 195 cities and territories have heard Graham's voice and witnessed him deliver the gospel in person or by satellite links. Good morning. Yes, I am just outside the Billy Graham Training Center here in Asheville. It's also called the Cove. It's actually a conference center and a retreat for Christians to come and enhance their spiritual awareness. And I want to tell you a little bit more about it, because not only is it that, but there is so much history here, including the chapel. The chapel at the Cove was actually the first building built on this property. Billy Graham started his ministry by preaching in large tents like this one, sometimes built just for him. And over time, he became to understand the power of new technology like television, radio, and eventually the internet. And by embracing the new ways, he was able to get his message out and reach millions all over the world. Really a lot of symbolism in this ceremony, from the tent, which of course was a tribute to his life spent under a tent, preaching the word, preaching the gospel at tent revivals and at his crusades, and then to the white lilies beside his casket, something that the Graham family would send to people when they lost loved ones. And then his casket itself, simple, built by prisoners, very humble. Billy Graham was not about the show. He wasn't about having his name mentioned or advertising himself in these crusades. It was all about spreading the message. And that's what we saw again today here at this funeral. People spreading the message of Jesus, not as much reflecting on the life of Billy Graham, but we certainly heard some personal stories from the Graham children, especially from Ruth, who you mentioned, Megan. You know, she had trouble in her marriage. She was worried about coming home to her father and disappointing her parents, but he welcomed her home with open arms and said that that's what God would have done. We also heard from Anne Graham Lotz, who read a passage of the Bible. She said she read it in her mother's way and her father's way. Her mother's way was to personalize it, to put her name in the passage, and her father's way was to add a little something after every sentence. And she mentioned how she would go, once her father wasn't able to see or hear as well, and give him a 60-minute sermon, and then it dwindled down into 5 or 10 minutes. But in each one, she tried to say something at the end of every sentence like he would, and explain why she chose that passage to him, much like she did today. Billy Graham's light shined around the world, and it isn't out, even today.
Being able to see him pull away for the last time just warmed my heart, yet saddened my heart.
This is a place the Reverend loved to be, the Billy Graham Training Center at the Cove, a mountain getaway to find peace, and as he said, to grow closer to God.
The Cove was a combination of Mr. Graham and Mrs. Graham's vision.
And it's the people here at the Cove that knew Reverend Graham best. You can see it in their faces, feel it in their hugs, hear it in their song.
Obviously, we're mourning the loss of a great man, but at the same time, we are rejoicing because we know exactly where he's at, and that's in heaven with his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
There is a way if you come by the way of the cross.
And while their guiding light is gone, his message of love lives on.
I love you with an everlasting love.
What he takes out of here is the greatest evangelistic outreach crusade that I believe he will ever have the opportunity to be part of.
Maddie Gardner, WFMY News 2.